Okay.
Do we need to introduce ourselves or not? Or just, this is just a conversation?
Hi, I'm Jackie,
I'm Elaine.
and we're just having a conversation.
About why do we want to go to all the effort of living our destiny, and what in the world does that mean?
And finding our heroine within.
Yeah, that too.
Why do we want to do that? And my feeling, just off the cuff, is in our current cultures on Earth, women generally are not heroines.
No.
Women are taught to give up what and who they are to take care of everybody else, which is pretty heroic in its own. Okay, that's a boy. The boy doesn't need we don't need talking about right now. So that we get worn out as women, no matter how much we really care. Caring for kids, caring for spouses, caring for the earth. I mean, it's a lot of it about caring, and even our anger is often about caring. It's because things are unjust, and we know that things could be different. But how do we charge ourselves up again? How do we give ourselves enough energy?
Well, it's hard to have the courage to stand up and say, look, I'm not going to be taking care of all these details.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start taking care of myself, because as a powerful woman, we can't be servants all the time. I mean, we serve in a different
But look
way.
how even you said that. It's like almost apologetic.
I know, it's apologetic.
I know, and our culture says, no, the Bible says, and the Quran says, and it's like, and the Buddha says, like, wait a minute. They're all interpreted through the cultures in which we exist.
Right.
What about if we let ourselves truly know that all of us deserve justice, deserve pleasure, God forbid,
And
happiness,
and
that we
fun.
all can care for each other. Because
Yeah.
I think culturally in the world, men feel that it is their job to take care of women and children. And they do that in a way that's pretty controlling, because that's what they know, and because they haven't really been checked. And religion has bought into that and not checked it and says, wait a minute, there's a difference between caring and taking care of. And so men don't quite get that, and women, and so the caring is a weakness.
Well, it's perceived as a weakness.
Right, exactly.
And the way, I don't know, maybe the young modern women now coming up they'll just laugh at us and say, oh, you guys are.
But they'll find
But-
themselves stuck in the same role. Well, and not all. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
and I think they have a challenge too, because how do you, if you're drawn to care, whether you find a spouse or a partner, or whether you are have children, or have a community or children that you care for.
Right. I think part of the inherent nature of being a woman is the fact that we do have a stronger nurturing sense, because we have children. We have to take care of our children.
And they come from us.
They come from us, and so they're part of us. And so just by being a mother to children, and whether it's live children or our pet projects or the community, we have this connection with them that's hard to explain, but if you're a mother, you can understand. It's like you psychically, are interlinked with them energetically somehow. So you always know. And so it's real easy for us to fall prey to over nurturing, over giving, because it's already in our nature. And then if you are around people who encourage you to overgive, then all of a sudden we're in this trap. And
I think men also get caught in their own trap of being told, if you really care, if you really want to do it, you got to keep at it, and you got to show who's boss. You got to put your foot down. And all men are not that way. Men can also care as opposed to just care for.
right.
And so it ends up being about, we were talking about this in Enneagram class, about the difference between relationship and relating.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship is kind of like the hierarchy. We know where we stand in relationship. But relation is really give and take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we all benefit when women give and take, when we know our strengths and stand our ground about them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very caring thing to do. And I think it encourages men to know their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, men are stronger in the hindbrain, which is fight or flight, which is the take care of the business, take care of doing.
Right.
Women are stronger in the prefrontal cortex, which is how many people can I save before the sky falls, for instance.
Right.
And so if we just go with fight or flight, we're sunk. We're going to kill or be killed, and there's going to be no time for enjoying life, no time for thriving. But if we just are in the prefrontal cortex, and how many people can I save, how many people can I take care of? Oops, the bomb has gone off and nobody got out.
Mm-hmm.
Or the fire has burned the building and nobody's got out because we aren't discerning.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those, I think, need to be done. But
Mhm.
our culture has allowed the more forceful,
Mm-hmm.
the more archaic, the fight or flight, to lead us. And even a lot of the Old Testament biblical stuff that the Christian world and the Judeo-Christian world is built around has to do with fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we are given, we have reason, we have other parts of our brain, and to live in fear is bare survival.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would love to thrive.
Right. It's our natural state. If we can put aside all the fears and all the things that society says we're supposed to be, our natural state is to be healthy and thrive and be, loving and sharing and happy and grateful and see the beauty about everything. I mean, it's
That's
like,
a lot.
oh yes, it is a lot, But I mean, and I think everybody experiences that at times. Maybe just little tiny snippets,
And then,
but it's enough to lead
Yeah.
us forward. And
right,
so-
and without feeling guilt. And often when we feel those snippets, we feel like, oh, I don't deserve that, or I haven't worked hard enough for it, or, well, no, I can't have it till everybody has it, which is a real noble sentiment,
Mhm.
but it's not the way it's going to be because we are humans on this human earth.
Mhm.
So I think the more joy we feel, the more strength we feel in ourselves, the more ease we have.
Right.
And when we have ease, those around us as we deal with
Right.
have ease.
Right.
Men who might be dealing from the fear place, or women dealing from the fear place, can be put more at ease by our presence.
Mhm.
But if we keep obsessing with all the things we must do and all the things we're obligated to do and what culture expects of us, we don't get to that place of ease.
Hmm.
And
So that's where we come into this whole concept of life purpose and living your destiny and what does it mean and why do you even want to go to the effort? Well, we started that
Yeah.
conversation out with that. Why do we want to go the effort to living, finding out who we are, because that's the first step.
Mhm.
And then the harder step is actually letting go of the things that we have to let go of so that we can step into being that person and naturally doing whatever it is that follows.
And it doesn't, I think sometimes when we think of finding our purpose, it's like the out there purpose.
Right.
The I am meant to be the savior of the country, or I am meant
To be the teacher or
yeah.
the
And
healer
sometimes-
or whatever it is.
And sometimes the purpose is simply knowing our authentic self, and the purpose is moving day to day
Mhm.
in our own authenticity without being distracted or taken aside by the shoulds, and to really know what, because we always will, we're human, we're going to get taken aback by the shoulds, we're
Right.
going to be distracted, but to know, to forgive ourselves, or even forgiveness even is a weird term because it means we've done something wrong,
Right.
but to circle back and pick up our authenticity and say, okay, you know what, this feels much better to me.
Mhm.
And even, how many people feel guilty in our culture just by saying, this feels better to me.
Right. Yeah, well, we've got so many layers and layers and layers, whether,
Mhm.
especially here in our Western culture, we've got religious mores of what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to behave, and we've got social, how you're supposed to fit into the tribe, and if you don't fit in, you're going to get kicked out, and that's a matter of survival, that's
Yeah.
eminent importance here. And so, we've got all these layers and layers that we've served the purpose for centuries because that was part of our survival. It was the way we had to work together with people. But now it's coming to the point where we got pretty much have our survival taken care of, and so now we can move up the ladder. Is it Maslow's? Maslow's ladder, you know, to achieve more
Than just survival. Yes.
self-actualization. So then that raises the question, well, what is that?
Mhm.
And so self-actualization and destiny and life purpose and our life mission and all those things are all kind of interwoven into the whole fabric of who we are
Yeah.
as an individual, as an energy being that is a complex web and weave of a combination of dominant energies and more submissive energies that all work together.
And when you asked the question we started with about why is it important to know who we are, know what our mission is, I think it's because it gives us that glow of authenticity. I think of the times, I spent some time as a police officer, and I would, when I was on foot patrol, strike up conversations with people, perhaps unlikely conversations. I would ask some of the youth in the housing project, if you could be anything you wanted to be, what would you be? And of course, all the predictable stuff started out, but then someone would say, you know, I always thought it would be great to be an architect. I love to build stuff, and I would love to learn how to build buildings. And someone else would, all of a sudden, what they used to dream of as a child or what they once thought of and then squelched, they'll verbalize it. And just by verbalizing it, say, okay, I'm not anywhere near there now. I may never get there. But this is the kind of person I really am when I'm not acting out to fit in. And this is where I feel like I fit in no matter where I am because it comes from inside me.
Right.
And to be in that kind of presence when someone gets who they are or who they want to be is such a blessed feeling. I felt honored to have people share that with me. And I think when we know who we are, even if we have the kids squalling and the teachers calling and the husband's sick home from work and worried about where the money's going to come from, if we know who we really are, then we can take each step forward, knowing who we are.
We trust. Trust in ourselves and trust that, well, part of the thing of knowing who we are is that we are not only this physical body, but we are also an expanded, invisible body connected to a greater source. And so that's all part of this knowing. And it's hard to know because here we go again. It's another one of our conditionings. It's like, you know, whatever you can touch and feel, you know, is real. And what you can't see is not real.
But then science, real true science tells us that we and all the things around us are actually more space.
We're 99.9% space.
Than solid material. And we're part of each other. We touch, we're exchanging molecules. We're exchanging molecules with the chair. And when we talk about our spiritual self, it expands beyond us. We're breathing the same air.
Right.
I mean,
we're all connected.
There's so many ways we're connected.
Yeah.
And so when we try to be independent little selves, it simply isn't true. It doesn't ring true. And people who feel that they're self-made people and that they're independent from everybody else, they're missing who they are because there are parts of them floating around out there sharing with other people that they're not acknowledging.
Or they're not unaware of.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think some of these tools that we work with, whether it's numerology or astrology or human design or the Enneagram, these have been tools that people have used for centuries to help learn who they are. And it's not like, well, this is a cookie cutter, you're this, and you're screwed, you know, by being this. It's like, no, these are the elements that, if you look at them, are your strengths or your weaknesses or your challenges, as we say, because they're not really weaknesses.
Right.
These give you a clue so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So, okay, this is what you're starting with. This is what your tendencies are. How do you want to manifest who you are with these tools that you have? So I think that all of this stuff that used to be thought totally woo-woo is helpful. That's why it's been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
It's not just woo-woo. It's a lot of stuff that helps us. And I think sometimes it takes, I'm just going to scoot out of the this on a little bit more. When sometimes it takes until we're older and don't have all of these pressures from, hormones and from ages, right, the rights that we go through in certain ages.
Right.
We get older and we say, okay, whoa, who am I? Because my face obviously isn't the face I had when I was younger. My body is not my younger body, so that identification has sailed.
But you still have a sense of who you are. It doesn't matter what the
Yes,
body looks
right.
like.
And I think when we're younger, the body and the appearance takes on much more importance. Maybe because we're not as
As wise.
wise, yeah, as old, as evolved as whatever happens when we get older and wiser, which
Right.
hopefully we do. To recognize it as all of a mix.
Well, I think something that happens when we age, it has to do with, the whole aging process has to do with, well, the scientists talk in the brain, you make more dendrites as you make more of the little neural connections, so you can see the bigger picture as you get older. I don't know, I remember back when I was younger, life was pretty simple, and I really liked it, and I'm really frustrated that life isn't as simple anymore. But the thing is, and I think maybe this is what it means by wisdom, getting wise, is that you've seen all these things and you see how they're all connected and they're all related and how one builds upon the other, and you have to they're essential for each other. And that goes into, well, I guess maybe that's all part of learning about who each one of us is that we begin to see that I am all these pieces, and I'm also all her pieces, and I'm all the next person's pieces. It's just that I have favorite pieces.
Well, it's true. And as you're saying, we're talking about, it seems so simple when we were children, but ultimately it is simple if we allow ourselves to understand that we are all these things, and we don't have to decide to be all these things. We just are. And once we accept them, we can move on to being in that that ourness, our usness, our who-ness, or our unifiedness.
Right.
And we can change our minds every single minute. Sometimes we just want to be us. We want to be in the bathtub, just us.
Right.
And sometimes we want to be in the middle of it, knowing that we're making a difference with everybody else. And sometimes we just want to be with a few people that we trust, and sometimes we feel we're ready to be with people we don't particularly like and build new understandings. Because they're all us, we're all them, but it's essentially simple, and we can decide. Of course, some of us have built this habit of not saying no, saying yes to everybody else's desires and needs.
That happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
For a lot of people. I mean, I'm guilty of it.
I'm
But
guilty of it too.
but a lot of people I talk to, even if they don't overtly acknowledge it, they do that. It's like, what's somebody going to think if I do this? And can I quit this job? Or I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. Or
Somebody asked me to do this, and I really should, even though I don't want to, because it's like,
because I don't want them to get mad at me and reject me,
or just because because the Bible says, or because I've always been taught that this is the thing to do. And it's like, wow, the real simple thing is, if you agree, and I found this, because I'm not a kitchen person. I can clean up, but I hate planning meals, and I'll serve people, but working in the kitchen is not my thing. So if I get roped into it by my refusal to say no, and I'm working in the kitchen and I'm not happy,
get resentful.
guess who can tell?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yes.
And then
it goes into your food, and everybody gets indigestion from your food.
So so to say no to something that it sounds in the old format, it sounds selfish.
Yes.
If something's not going to make you happy, say no to it. But if something's not going to make you happy and you do it anyway, what energy is going to be in that doing?
It's going to be the same thing anyway, so you just as well have said no.
Might as well just not have done it.
And deal with your own fears of how people are going to respond. Now, the thing is, a lot of people have been trained by your past actions of always saying yes, that you will say yes, And when you say no, they go, what? Oh, you can't do that.
But you've always done.
You've always done that, and it's like, wait a minute here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't I change? Aren't I allowed to change?
Well, and why do we even ask? It's like, well, I changed my mind.
Yeah.
Or I
Well,
knew my mind. I learned my mind is more.
Well, that when I was growing up, there was always this joke about women. It was very uncomplimentary about how women always changed their mind. And, and they always pulled that one out of the hat. I changed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up thinking that changing your mind was a terrible thing. I mean, it was like an insult.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, so I wanted to say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it forever. But the problem is, we change. As we get older, we get smarter, and pretty soon we start saying, okay, I've done this, I promised, but I'm going to have to break my promise, because I don't want to do it anymore.
And it's totally valid. I mean, I totally get that, because I know that I'm, as an Enneagram 9, I tend to be easily swayed by people's arguments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dig in, generally. And there's some things I've learned to dig in about, because they're so
Right.
important to me, but I'm easily swayed.
Well, that's a
So
lot of
is
your
that-
water, too.
Is that flip-floppy? Am I flip-flopping that,
Yeah.
awful? But also, I know that as a child, being a military brat, we moved every couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a child, I realized that I was changing, and if I didn't like who I was in one culture, in one place, when we moved, I had an opportunity to reinvent myself.
Right.
And that was very liberating, because I think we do that normally.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, my brothers say, oh, who do you think you are now? That's not who you are. It's like, if I was me now, I'd say, you pay attention to who you are now, I'll pay attention to who I am.
That's right. You take care of your stuff, I'll take care of mine. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing too, that's I've noticed a lot, both in myself and in other people, is that we like to stick our nose in other people's business more than we want to stick our nose in our own. And so in other words, it's like we'll judge people. We'll say, oh well, they're lazy, or they should be doing this, or they should be doing that, or whatever it is. But the thing is that I've found out the hard way is that when I'm busy judging somebody, and I'm really pointing the finger at myself, I'm judging myself. Oh, well, I shouldn't be so lazy, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm not doing what I say I'm doing, and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, that mirror, that.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that
people
mirror.
are mirrors. So that's I guess we need to move
Keep
on.
moving with the sun. We're changing. The sun is changing, and so are we.
So,
Yeah, and that is such a wonderful concept. That what bugs us most about someone else, instead of saying, why are they that way, we say, why does it bother me so much?
Right.
What about what they're doing bothers me? Not what makes them so wrong. And at the risk
I
of
know,
having...
but we want to change them.
Well, at the risk of, getting involved in the political scheme, one of the most popular people to point a finger at without holding a mirror is our current president, Donald Trump. It's like, okay, what about him do I have some of in me that I don't like?
Mm-hmm.
And let me get my house in order. Let me do what I can do. Have some empathy for the person that has developed those characteristics that I don't like in myself.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to make a world where it's more popular, more to work together,
Right.
instead of keep dividing ourselves from other people because we're different, we're better? And that's a question we can only ask ourselves, because we
Yeah.
can't fix it for someone else. We can't make him someone he's not. But by knowing what bugs us about ourselves and knowing what bugs us about him, we can put things in a different perspective.
Right.
We can frame them differently.
And maybe make some new choices, make different choices. And so, if I don't like, don't like how somebody is talks a lot and never does anything, and then I look at myself and say, where have I done that? Okay. So then I can start saying, first of all, I can recognize where I've been doing it, and then I can catch myself the next time I go to do that and say, okay, well, how about if I have the courage to go ahead and do this anyway? And, you know, it makes new choices. And once you make new choices, you start rewiring your brain differently. And then pretty soon your life changes.
And I find with myself when I do that the conversations that I have, the successive conversations with those same people become much more informed, and they become much more of a two-way conversation, because
Yeah.
I've recognized where I'm there and what's helped me, and whether it's not being talked at,
Mm-hmm.
not being judged, because whether we're being judged by others or judging ourselves or feeling like we're judged
Or
by others.
thinking
because-
other people are judging us.
Yeah, because
that
it's us
too.
judging us that has magnified everything. All of that, if we pay attention to ourselves, then I find it makes our relationships, even with people we find difficult, less difficult. Doesn't mean we have to hang out with folks that make us feel awkward, but at least when we have to relate to people, or when we do relate to people, it can be more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not, oh God, beating ourselves up, beating them up, all that whole historic thing we hate to do, but we do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what's funny? I just noticed.
What?
You're wearing red and I'm wearing blue.
Uh-huh.
And you're the water person and I'm the fire person.
Interesting.
Is that called
yeah.
mirroring?
It is called mirroring. We knew we were going to have a conversation today.
Well, we didn't know that.
No, we
It
didn't
just-
know that.
It just happened.
Psychically, we must have known. We must have been connected that way. Yeah. I noticed that too. I said, boy, we're really complimenting each other,
Yeah.
but sort of in the, yeah.
Isn't that fun? So there we go. That's an example of how, you know, she's me and I'm her. I
We're
mean,
just like our molecules are just
you know, we
Yeah,
have different
interacting.
perspectives. We're on our own individual person, living our own individual lives, but there's still a bond between us, between everyone, and we all feel it. And I don't know if you're, sometimes, you know, if you're highly sensitive, when there's something goes on in the world, you can feel it. And whether it's
Yeah.
something in the earth or some sort of a dramatic emotional event, you can
Yeah.
feel it. And that's, when you do, it's because we are all connected.
it causes a rift in the force.
Yeah,
If
there we
you-
go.
That term has been used. A rift, you feel it, yeah.
Yeah, you feel it.
And it's also interesting that I was just thinking as you were saying that, and us being part of each other, sometimes the best relationships start out with pushing away,
Right.
with not being comfortable with that other person, and there are 1,000 reasons why. But I think that once we allow, this is
Usually-
another thing, the
usually-
vulnerability, that we
Usually, yes,
surrender.
vulnerable.
That's a
Yes.
whole other conversation.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that too.
Surrender, which has such a negative connotation because we in our culture have seen it as giving up.
Right, means like somebody else is in charge of us.
Yeah, and we've just stopped being everything that we are. Whereas surrender is actually stopping,
It's very
And-
feminine.
yeah, and just being.
Right.
Not doing, not trying, not regretting, not past or present, just being. Taking a breath, and we can still want what we want and surrender.
Mm-hmm.
We want what we want, we decide this is what we'd like our life to be, and now we just surrender to be in ourselves, to be in
So
the world.
what it has to do with is, it's like you set an intention, like, I want to live my highest path and purpose. But I'm not 100%, I mean, I've studied my charts a lot, so I have a clue. But, you know, but still, I just don't know exactly how it's all going to unfold. I mean, am I supposed to have a business? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be writing? I mean, how exactly am I supposed to live my highest path and purpose? And so the trap that's really easy to get into is, oh, well, it needs to look this way, and I need to do it this way, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is when I'm going to do it, and this is who I'm going to do it with.
Micromanage
and-
your path?
Yeah, we do that.
No.
We do that. Yeah. I mean, that's the way we've kind of like our
Which is
Western
great.
culture. It's all up here in our head.
We're
gonna
yeah.
figure it all out.
We're micromanaging something that we're not sure what it is.
Yeah.
So-
and we haven't a clue of how it's supposed to unfold.
Guess how well that works.
It doesn't work with the darn.
Doesn't work with the darn, you're right.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I got that little sign that says, people plan and God laughs.
Yep, yep, yep.
And so that's kind of the way it is. So surrender is one of those elusive things. It's like, okay, let's have a plan. And then, but then let's have the plan be loose. Let's let it, I mean, maybe I'm not supposed to do this today. I'm supposed to do it tomorrow or the next day. And maybe I'm not supposed to see that person, but I'm supposed to see that person.
Yeah.
But if I have it fixed in my head that this is the way it's supposed to be, and it doesn't happen that way, I get all stressed out.
So,
And then I think I'm a failure.
and we don't recognize the gifts that show up.
Yeah.
Because if it's not in that path that we're micromanaging, we have this image that it's an obstacle. It's in our way. We need to get rid of it.
Right.
Whereas we could be given the perfect opportunity and won't see it because it's not shaped like our idea of opportunity.
Right.
I think about when I talked to my mother, who when she first got married to my father, he was a military man, so they were moving, and she was going to have a career. She was going to travel the world and have a career.
Oh.
Well, all of a sudden, 6 years later, she had 5 kids. And it's not easy to...
That was a new career.
it's not easy to have an outside career as a military wife. It wasn't in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
And so I talked, and she was crabby for about 17 years.
Oh, really?
That's the way I say it. She wasn't a terrible mom or
So
anything.
she was kind of resentful for being forced into
Kind of.
something.
Well, but she says now, she scratches her head with this extraordinary look of puzzlement on her face. She goes, why didn't I just enjoy it?
Having the kids.
And being with the kids. I mean, she was going to have them for a while, and we were kind of cool kids. We were all odd, and there was lots of adventure to be had. And she didn't really mind moving, but there was this back current of resentment because her idea of what she wanted was
Right.
over here,
Right.
and what she was given, 5 kids, that's a great gift.
Right. Yes.
But
that's
she
true.
didn't recognize it until she was older. And all of those wonderful years of her life, I won't say they were wasted. She won't say that either. But they could have been much more full
Mhm.
if she would have said, oh, here, this is what I have. Let me
Be
enjoy it.
grateful. Yeah.
And if we look at that, we often do that with ourselves. We say, well, I wanted this. For instance, I've always wanted a house on the lake.
Right.
On a lake, because I love to row. So we have a house 2 blocks from the beach. And it's,
But you can't row on the beach.
I like the lake better. I like the river better. But
Yeah.
here, it's a marvelous neighborhood. We have the beach within walking distance. I have wonderful friends nearby. Am I going to sit here and resent that I don't have a house
Some
on the
people,
lake?
Some people would.
Well, and sometimes it's like, well, I really would rather have, it's like, okay, maybe that's in the future.
Mhm.
But right now in this moment, things are pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
But to stop and do, and that's a kind of surrender.
That takes a lot of discipline to stop yourself from whining. And there's certain astrological signs that like to whine more than others. Yours isn't, luckily.
I'm a Scorpio, so I don't whine. I just sting.
There we go. Yes, that's right. But having gratitude and finding what's good, finding the blessing in your current situation, is a real challenge. Now, this can go down a dark rabbit hole because it's real easy to rationalize where you are and settle for less. So here we go again. We get into this very fine line. Where is it being grateful for what we have and blessing our life versus settling for less and carrying that resentment only inside, unhidden?
Or on the same, waiting for somebody else to
fix it. Right.
And there's some popular self-help writers who say you don't want to focus on the negative, you don't want to think about the negative, you only want to think about the positive. But surrendering is acknowledging, you know what? It's all here. It's all one. What can I be and do with what I have and where I am?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about, okay, we're going to pretend everything is not, and we're just going to stay here behind that
Mm-hmm.
notness. It's like, no, there are all these things. And so we
Right.
deal with them, we accept them, or we don't accept them. I mean, we can rail against the machine.
Right.
Acknowledge we're railing against the machine. We're not
Right.
happy right now. We don't have to be happy all the time. But when we're finished railing, take a deep breath and go, okay, here I am.
Right.
Was that so difficult? well, you can't say that when you're in the middle of it.
Right,
Say it afterwards,
right, yeah.
Is it so difficult to be me in this moment?
Right. Well, and usually when you get done with being all unhappy and crawl out of the rut, then you find there is something good for it. There's a message, there's a lesson, there's a something. So even if it is doing something where you've settled for less, like say you want to quit your job, but you don't want to give up your money because you don't know how you're going to make money. So you stay there, but you're not happy. So that's kind of like settling for less. And you rationalize, well, I can't do this because I won't make any money here, so I got to stay here. So, but still, when you finally accept, this is my choice, that I'm choosing to settle for less at this moment until I figure out a better plan, then it kind of takes some of that resentment and the anger and the frustration. Is kind of like, okay, I know where I don't want to be. This is teaching me something. It's showing me what I don't want to be, and then you start looking towards where do you want to be, and then nothing happens overnight. Unfortunately, it just that's the other part of this is like you just want everything to happen right now, but it just doesn't happen right now.
Well, you look at that like that that instance that you were looking at. Say, so you're in a job that you don't want to leave because of the money, but your daughter is taking oboe lessons. She's just won a statewide competition. She is in love with her life. What parent wouldn't
And you're
be willing
encouraging her
to make some sacrifices in their work joy to make their child be in love with their life? And if we stop and say, wow, yeah, if my child is also totally unhappy because I'm totally unhappy, then we maybe need to look,
that's different.
okay, where can I change this? But by the same token, when we're looking at where our gifts are, she's petting the dog. The dog is feeling ignored. If we look at where
He's another mirror.
yes, so if we're looking at our life, and we can also say, we can just reframe it, say, call it a different thing.
That's true.
We can call our future. We can say, okay, what's happening in my life? We can say, oh, it's all crap. Or we can say, wow, I have this little star here, and this is here, and wow, my home is my castle, and my wife is the most extraordinary person, or my husband or my partner is the most extraordinary person, except when they aren't, but they are most of the time. And I mean, we can say that, oh, that's Pollyannish. But if we don't say that sometimes, the alternative is often that we make it, I can't stand my spouse, my house is a mess, my boss is a jerk, my commute is too long, and everybody I run into is obnoxious. Like,
They're idiots.
And the thing is, I lived in New York City for 25 years, and there was always an amazing person or two or 20 on the bus, on the subway, on the highway, waiting in line in the supermarket. It's amazing if you let it be, but if you're sitting there tapping your toe, resenting, ooh, guess who else is going to pick that up? Because we're all connected, we're all vibrating
Our
the same.
auras are bumping into everybody. We're busy. I read somewhere, I can't remember where I read it or who I heard it from, but that we actually communicate through our energy field more than
Body
the
language
words.
and
So in other words, when you walk into, it's like how you could walk into a room and you can feel, you know right away, this is a happy party, or there's some bad stuff. I mean, you just, it's like instantly you know it. And a lot of times we put it down, we just ignore it, we say, oh, that, whatever. Because we stay in our heads. And our head says, oh, just, we don't see that. It's invisible. You can't see it. You can't see a feeling. But, but it's there and we feel it. And it helps to acknowledge that we feel it.
Well, and I found that when...
Do we need to move again?
we might.
We might try going back that way again.
Let's try going back this way. There we go. Is it? Pulling back a little bit into the shadow? Or do you need to come over? There we go. Skylights.
there we
Skylights are
go.
wonderful, except when they're not. Oh, you're right in it. Okay, let's come over. There we go. Yeah, we'll have a different background. It won't be quite as flowery.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, because the sun's going that way.
Okay, so, yeah, see, we have to change all the time.
Yeah, that's
Got
the way
it.
life is.
Give us opportunity to stand up and stretch our legs.
Right, the stool is hard.
Oh, yeah, the stool is hard. Yep. We were just talking
About energy.
energy.
And
yeah.
reading energy.
Oh, I know. I was going to say, someone once told me to try this, but when you're talking on the phone with someone who is really pulling you down, and you just want to get off the phone with them because they're really they're really, what do they call wetting your buzz?
Yeah,
Is
they're
that the
dragging
expression?
you down.
Anyway, they're dragging you down. To pause and start sending them love. Forget that you want to get off the phone and say, you know what? And not verbally, just say, empathizing with them, listening, really being present, like surrendering
Mm-hmm.
to that you and this person, you do love this person, that there's something here that you wouldn't be talking to them if you didn't,
Right.
Ostensibly. But the conversation
Not unless it's a
inevitably,
telemarketer.
sometimes they really, yeah, goes without saying. But sometimes they really just need more and more and more.
Right.
But if you do that, it's easier to phase the conversation closed, or it will feel like it's finished.
Uh-huh.
And whereas if you just, oh man, I can't wait to get up, come on, will you please shut up, we did that, and it goes on and on and on. Whereas if you just
Right.
be there, and that,
Well,
that
I
energy
think
can
it
work.
gets down to people want to be seen. I mean, that's like, that's another
Mhm.
invisible thing that nobody acknowledges, and nobody I don't think is really even conscious of it. They don't know that
Oh, yeah.
they want to be seen. They want to be seen for their
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
soul of who they are.
Yeah.
You see somebody walking down the street.
Mhm.
They might be, all frumpy looking and
Yeah.
and rough and kind of walking with their head down and all
Mhm.
tucked in, because they don't want to be. They pretend like they don't want to be seen because who knows why. But the thing is, I think it's a natural need, a yearning, a deep yearning, deep within us,
Yeah.
that we want to be seen for who we are.
For who we are, and I think that's a key, because I think people who form that armor around themselves, sometimes they're afraid of who they'll be seen as.
Right.
Sometimes they think they want to be seen as something other than who they are.
Right.
But I think that people essentially do want to be seen for who they are. And the
Right.
things, we don't have them figured out. We don't need to figure them out,
No.
because people hate for
Us to figure them out.
us to think we know them better than they know themselves. But to just simply look at someone and say, our energies are passing back and forth. They are,
Right.
however you want to say it, a child of God, or, they are who they are.
Right.
And to allow that and to be present with that, to surrender to that and just see them,
Mhm.
without any judgment, without any decision making and all the head stuff, can be liberating. And it might
Yeah.
soften them a little bit. It might not. They might just go home feeling, or go where they go,
Mhm.
feeling that they've been seen, that there's been something that happened.
There's some sort of invisible communication that happens. It's like Scooter. He goes up to see people. He loves people.
Scooter's her dog.
He's the dog.
Mhm.
And he goes up and he wears this sweet little innocent face, and I tell you, he melts people's hearts. He goes up and he puts his paw on them. I had a lady tell me that he's a healer, and so a healing dog. But so he does. He melts people's hearts and
Mhm.
puts a smile on their face. So is he seeing them for who they are then?
Yeah, and he
mean-
doesn't use his words, so we don't
but
necessarily
he
know.
he wags his
Yeah,
tail and
uh-huh.
he has this sweet little innocent
Mhm.
expression. He knows we're talking about him.
He
He's right
does. He
here.
knows what we're talking about.
and he does it every time. Even people who are grumpy and cursing at the machines in the laundromat or something, he'll have to do a couple of times, but pretty soon they'll reach down and they'll pet him and they'll smile, and you can see their whole aura shift. They've gone from this to open and relaxed.
And children can be really good at that
And they
too.
can do that
I mean,
too.
we release oxytocin when children are around, which is
Right.
the mothering hormone, which is really hard to resist, especially babies.
Yeah.
But a child, especially a child who is emotionally healthy, can have an extraordinary effect on
Well,
their
it's that
environment.
vibrance of
Just
life.
by like
They're
reaching up to touch someone,
Yeah.
asking someone a question, which is like inviting them into their world.
Yeah.
Even just speaking to people. Yeah, I love to tell. Sometimes I feel hesitant when I see someone. I want to make a comment about something about them that's striking me. But I found that I like it when it happens to me, and inevitably they like it.
Yeah.
I love that scarf that looks so beautiful on you.
Yeah.
Not just I love your scarf, but the scarf is on you, and this is just makes me feel good to see this. Or your voice is so resonant and so wonderful, or your hair is so beautiful on you, whatever. Or, you have such great posture, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And people,
Whatever it is, yes.
whatever it is. Your dog and you seem to have such a great relationship. People like to be seen that way.
Yeah.
And
They want to be acknowledged. They don't
Yeah.
want to be judged. They just want to be acknowledged.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like a side effect of destiny. I mean, it's like that's all part of the fabric of what is destiny.
yeah.
It's like being seen for who you are. I never thought about it this way, but I think
Yeah.
there's some truth to that, because destiny is all wrapped up in your life purpose, your like Mission Impossible. You get your mission.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's all wrapped up in the essence of who you are.
Mhm.
And how can you be who you are unless other people see you
And I
and
think
recognize you?
Yeah. And sometimes by recognizing others, you get recognized.
Yeah.
Same mirror effect
Yeah.
that we were talking about, things that
Yeah.
challenge us, is things that give us joy. We realize, it's not just them that has this wonderful thing. There's something in me that reflects that, and I like that about me.
Right.
And sometimes it's not until we get older that we have the space in our time, in our existence, in our aura to say, to look at all that and say, okay, my purpose, I feel good when I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And the readings, all of the things that we give us input as to what our basic self is, fit into this way. And it's like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I never did anything that really was leading me along my purpose. And all my life, these are the things. Oh my gosh, I've been on this path and I didn't even know it.
I
So,
know.
it's
That's
so
what's so
wonderfully
neat about
exciting.
it. Because I've been working just recently on the incarnation cross in human design. That's kind of like it's the conscious and unconscious sun, and the conscious and unconscious earth. That's called the incarnation cross, and that is supposed to be like your life story in a nutshell.
Ah,
And so, I've been taking this training, and so the exercise was we were supposed to figure out our incarnation cross and what the story is telling us about our life. Well, I don't do anything halfway. So I had to bring in the elements, and I had to bring in the astrology of it, and I had to bring in the houses of where my sun was, and where the other sun was, and the earth, and all this stuff. But at any rate, when I finally got done figuring it all out, I realized, because, I'm the storyteller, and I'm the wisdom keeper, and I got rationalization. So the high path, because, the other part I did was I drew in, so you have gates,
mhm.
and that attach to centers. And on the other side, if you have just a gate, there's another companion gate that goes with it. And so I drew in the other companion gate as part of the definition of the gate that is defined. And so it's like, here I am, I'm the storyteller from listening to other people's stories and my own. And then I can recraft those, take the blessings of the past and bring them forward. And because of all my 8th house Leo sun stuff, it's all about transformation, self-transformation, transforming your story, transforming your identity, transforming who you think you are to who you really are. And bridging other worlds in the way of doing that. In other words, bridging the invisible world as well as the physical. But the other side of it is that I have rationalization. So rationalization can either go, okay, rationalization has 2 steps forward and 1 step back, because the whole point of it is an earth element, is an earth energy, and so it's like grounding this stuff. and we got to make sure it's practical and it's going to work. So we take 2 steps forward because it draws in insights from the invisible.
Okay.
And these are concepts that, I mean, how do you define them? How do you explain them? And so the whole point of rationalization is to be able to take these concepts that are intangible, undescribable, and form them into some sort of a down-to-earth sort of language so that people can understand it. That's the highest. That's the highest path of that one. But what can happen is in other words, it's a way of interpreting and transforming these higher frequency energies into a physical reality. But it's easy to get caught up in what's not working. So in other words, part of the process is it takes 2 steps forward. So this is very creative, very innovative, very individual, very mutative sort of energy. I mean, these ideas that come in are just,
Where the heck do they come from?
yeah, they're to help better move our whole humanity forward. So, but they have to be tried and true. They have to be tried and tested. So it's easy to, oh, we got this awesome idea. This is what it's doing, and then you just goes forward. But then it has to drop back because there's a cycle. Both of my sons have a cycle. You know, it's like you out there, and then you come back and retreat, and you review and adjust and modify, and you wait for the right timing, and then you're out there again. So there's this cycle. So if you're not in the right timing of the cycle, it can just be a mess. And then you think you're a failure, and then you stop, and then you get stuck, and you say, I ain't going to do this because it doesn't work before. And then we're just going to get stuck in the past. And we don't, so I mean, there's a high road and a low road to these things. But the thing that really struck me was that here I am doing this already with writing this story that I'm writing. The book that we're working on. And it's like, and I just love it. And it's like, oh, well, I'm living out my path already, and I didn't even know it.
And it's amazing, too, because Elaine and I have found that working together helps bring some of that forward, that we often don't see something until it's reflected off someone else, or someone else reflects back to us that they see that, or ask you a question. All of a sudden, your head explodes because it's the perfect question to put everything in a perspective that makes sense to you, and it's just like cascades. And so often when we're doing this work, and perhaps it's a cultural thing, but we do it on our own. We do it sort of
we're also told that we need to go out and do it, and we need to, get this idea in your head, and you go do it, and don't let anything stop you, and you push and push and push and push and push. And most of us are not designed to do that. Now, in human design, they have there's energy types, and some types, like Jackie, she has energy to the throat, so that when she talks, she can convey. I mean, here we get this energy again. She like sends out little signals, says, "Listen to me, listen to me." I don't have sustainable energy. I do have a defined throat, but I don't have the sustainable energy, so I have to be invited out. And the other thing I don't have is I don't have a way of an inner authority. The only inner authority I have is I have to talk about what's on my mind, and then hear how crazy it sounds or how wonderful it sounds, and then watch somebody else and see how they respond back to it. And that's how I can figure out what's my best direction, where Jackie has a few other little things that she can do for making decisions.
We're very different, but we found over time, and it's taken time, that we work so well together, because part of it is that surrender, part of it is not judging, because we're different types, to really listen and try to hear.
To try to build on what it is that they offer.
What it is that, like, Elaine will talk and I'll say something.
Sometimes she says something I don't like, or I have another friend that does that too. She'll say things, and then it's like I don't want to hear that. But then I'll go and I'll think about it, and it's like, there's some truth in what she said. I may not buy the whole thing, but there's enough truth in it for me to build on to where I want to go next.
And what happens with Elaine is she has some of these way out ideas that I wouldn't necessarily stumble upon by myself, or in much smaller quantity, because I have a little woo-woo side to myself as well. But when we talk about them, it's like, of course, they're not that way out, because I have had that kind of inspiration. I have had the Spirit speak to me, and I've spoken to Spirit, and we've had these interchanges they don't always look the same,
Mm.
but when we allow ourselves to talk, and through the characters that Elaine has written,
They're so
we
good.
will ask, it's amazing, we'll ask questions because they are real people.
Right.
We've talked about it, they are part of us, part of Elaine, part of people that, and I can recognize some of them from her life,
Yeah.
but then we talk about what is their motivation, or why are they that way, or what would happen if they were this way, or
Right.
what if the world did this, how would they respond? And all this while, we are gaining a much greater understanding of ourselves, of our motivations, of our desires, of our loves, of our paths, and also those around us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes hearing about others will like give us these sparks of these light bulbs over the head. Oh, that's why he does that.
Right.
Oh, I need to be a lot more patient with that. Or that's why she says this or acts that way. Oh, I get that now. And these are from characters in the book, but also from each other sharing different types and being patient and taking the time and the presence to let her be me, to let me be me, and really slowly ask the questions and be willing. Yeah, it may be 2 steps back, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a lot of things happening while we're taking those 2 steps back.
Well, that's the other thing is this gets back to patience, and fire people are not patient. So, and I've got a lot of fire in my chart. So, yes, you have to take a breath and go, okay, everything's okay. But, you know, I forgot what I was going to say now.
Oh,
It was about what the last thing you
so
said.
taking a step back and all
Oh,
the
a
things that
step back.
happen while you're taking a
Yeah,
step back.
because the step back, even though we hate taking the step back and we'll moan and groan about it, actually is very necessary to build so that you can have a more solid foundation so that you can step forward. So if you think about it like walking through the forest or walking across a bridge, you know, crossing a little creek on a log or something like that, you know, you have to take one step, and if the log shakes, you kind of have to step back and say, okay, how can I do this and get a little differently? And you take another step and you try it, and eventually you get across. But it's so hard especially in our society, which says full steam ahead and nothing gets in the way, or you get rid of everything that's in the way. It's so hard to step back. And I guess this is another piece of the surrender, where you have to step back and say, okay, let's review this a little bit, and let's take a look, and let's look at it maybe from a different angle. And that's actually one of the gifts of my son, because the Gate 33 in I Ching is all about retreat, which it took me a long time to figure out what in the heck you're talking
What
about.
does retreat
What
mean?
does
Yeah.
retreat mean? And so I finally realized, you know, it's like, you know, here we've got, you know, like the general. I think about the general in the war, and he's looking out all of the battlefield, and he's back there, and he says, okay, well, we got to take a look at everything. And that's what you do. You go out, and you fight the battle, and then you come back and you take a look and say, well, okay, now we need to move people over here. We need to move people over there.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other analogy that just came into my mind the other day was the difference between a dog and a cat. So now this is because in retreat there's a certain amount of stillness and waiting and patience, which is a tough one to master. But if you think about a cat, so the cat's kind of, you know, in the bushes there a little bit, watching, you know, a mouse or a squirrel or a bird. And if you think about it, the cat is perfectly still. And it doesn't move an inch, just watches and watches and watches and waits and waits and waits until the timing is right, and then they attack. Now, the dog, he sees something out in the yard, and he just runs out there as fast as he can, and he may or may not catch it. Usually whatever he's chasing has a head start, so they get away. So that's kind of an example of how this retreat energy works. So,
Yeah. That's, I know that retreat is tough, but you know, we often find that too, even people who are very outgoing.
yeah, they have to come
Just
back.
need to sometimes just be by themselves and just breathe.
Yeah.
I find that with myself. I tend to be, and I can never decide whether I'm more an extrovert or an introvert, because I'm very happy with my own company and doing things by myself, but, and sometimes I get overwhelmed when I'm doing with others and in groups and stuff, but I think it's a combination. I have to step back and appreciate what that picture out there looks like. And sometimes it's nice just to be with a smaller, which I love smaller groups, or just, one-on-one. We can, and Elaine and I will like go through all kinds of stuff. We'll part our
Talk
ways.
about anything.
Part ways with our notes and with our mental notes. And the time that we're apart and doing other things, all that stuff is stewing. And it's amazing what we come up with next time to allow ourselves to fill in. Some of the characters we've gone, and we haven't even necessarily thought about them specifically, but next time we come together, we know those characters more because
Right.
we've taken that time to just let it stew. It doesn't have to
Right.
be a conscious effort all the time.
Right, yeah, Jackie's
Yeah.
really good at prodding me to get more ideas out. But see, that's the way I work. I have to be asked.
Yeah, and I'm really good at asking questions.
Yeah, she is. She's
Yeah.
really good at asking questions.
I like, and they're really questions I want to know the answers to, so they just
That's your
prompt other
You
questions.
want
So
to know all these things.
yeah, and the thing is, it may not be a right thing. Like when we say no, there's a connotation of KNOW. It's the fact, but I'm happy to have new knowings all the time about.
Yeah.
Well, no, we thought this person was this way, and no, that's not. No, maybe that's not working as well. Maybe they can be this way.
Well, that's the fun thing about
Yeah.
writing a story. And, and I'd like to, Jackie and I want to try and help other people do this too, is when you're the author and you're writing about this fictitious character, which is actually you, but you're pretending it's somebody else. If you don't like what's happening in their lives, you can change it. And you can give them new challenges, or you give them new people to help them, or you can take away that problem and give them another one. All is part of the growing and expansion of who they are becoming, and that's so much fun. And Jackie's done a really good job of asking enough questions, and important questions. About why does she do that? Well, now if she does that, can she do this? And what happens if this happens? So she asks all these questions, and it's been really great to help deepen it. So I've ended up writing a backstory for each one of the main characters, just to help understand, why did they get where they're at? What secrets are they hiding? What flaws are they working with? And how are they going to overcome these things? And our lives are just like that. The story is just another reflection of our lives, and our lives are just like that. We have our past, we have our flaws that we're working with, and we have strengths that we're working with, and how do we activate the strengths and use those strengths to overcome whatever is in front of us, and it's so much fun.
I know, and when we ask questions about fictitious characters, it's amazing how we constantly talk about reframing our lives so that our lives make more sense in a way we want them to.
All right, or retelling a new
Yeah.
story or something like that.
And it's amazing how, whatever level you do this at, daydreaming, incredibly helpful. Because in your daydream you say, well, what if, and then this travels, then no, let's go back. Oh, this is a better daydream. And in your life, there's a lot
and you have
of
to
that.
have romance.
But romance looks different all the time.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah, it is different for everybody, and I love that, and I love living in this age where that whole concept of romance is, often about sexuality, but not always about sexuality. There are all these aspects that welcome I see it in its ideal as welcoming every type of person, because we have so much of all of that in us.
Right.
And it makes our lives so much richer than just expecting Cinderella, the prince, they kiss, they fall in love, they live happily ever after. It's like,
Right.
excuse me for that, but it's like,
Well,
is that really? Because happily ever after,
what is happily
to
ever
me, is you
That'd get
finally have the
boring.
tools, you finally have people who are willing to work together and have the tools to start the real life.
Right.
So happily ever after is actually the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like getting a black belt is actually finally having the tools in being able to move forward. Knowing the alphabet is finally, it's not the goal, it's the start of
It's the
learning to
tools.
read and write.
Yeah.
So when we finally, and that's, I think, instead of thinking, oh, once we get here, we'll be there.
Right.
No, that only happens when you get into your coffin.
Right.
Then you're there, and
But then
that's
you go to another world, so
well, the body doesn't. Well, who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff about that. But yeah, it's like, so and that's sort of like saying the challenges. Every challenge is a new beginning.
right.
And if we can frame it that way after our initial cursing,
It's a new
And whatever.
opportunity
It's like-
for mastery.
it is. We just have to allow ourselves to see it that way. And characters in a novel, when you write them, especially when you write them, or even if you don't write them down, if you just develop them
Mhm.
in your head or with other people, really give you an opportunity to shape their future,
Mhm.
aka your own future,
Mhm.
because every one of those characters is you
Mhm.
and everyone else in a way.
Mhm.
But I was teasing Elaine that in the book that we're working on, every one of the 9 points of the Enneagram is represented, which is interesting because Elaine doesn't really do Enneagram. That's not her strength. It's one of my favorite tools, but it represents everybody. We have all of that in us, which is
Mhm.
why we have every sign of the zodiac in us at some level. The DNA, we have all the DNA since the beginning of humans in us at some level.
Mhm.
So, but to recognize that, and it expresses so beautifully,
Mhm.
and it really can clear up some of our own challenges
Mhm.
when we're solving the challenges
Well-
or giving challenges,
Well,
which is
that's
just
what
to
has
the
been so
characters.
much fun and so cathartic about writing this story is that, well, originally it was channeled, so, and it was kind of like channeled as my instruction manual for what's going to happen in the next 6 months to the year, which is funny because it's already happening. So spirit is true. Spirit gives you the right messages, but the thing was that is that I could take incidents in my life, which I did, and apply them to these characters who were actually me, but they weren't. And as a fictitious character, it's like there's an arm's length here. It's like they're there and I'm here. If I tried to write myself as that person, my ego would be in the way, and I'd be judging myself, and I would be limiting myself because in my mind I have limitations. But when you're writing about a fictitious character, this character has no limitations. Now she does have she does have the
character.
blueprint was the
Mhm.
blueprint defined by her astrology and her human design and her soul akashic record and all that. She has a blueprint from which to start, but that's really open and vague, and it's like our life. We in our charts we can find out what our blueprint is. We're supposed to be a this or a that, but it's so vague because life is not about vague. Life is about, I need to get money to pay that bill tomorrow. How am I going to do that? And so in the story when you're writing, you can create. You are not limited. So this character, she's limited by what the story you've given her, and the framework that she's built in, but she has the ability to grow and expand and tap into her strengths and develop them and see what works and what doesn't work. So it's a great way to experiment with your own life in a detached, sort of a third person, otherworldly reality, and then you can say, well, that didn't work very good for her. Maybe we better try something else. And you can
And maybe
take
even
that.
shift the world a little bit.
Yeah, or shift the world a little bit, and a lot of it is about perception. It's like what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe other people think? It's like my character has this fatal fear that she's going to do evil, because she did some evil. And so how does she deal with that? Because we all have some sort of fatal fear, some sort of a flaw that we think other people judge us for. And it's just, something we did that was out of integrity with ourselves so bad that it's like we can't reconcile it, and so we hide it away.
Yeah.
But this case keeps coming back up to haunt her. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, I wrote in a little bit, I had to write in a little explanation in one of the chapters about that. Just,
To refer back
just
to it.
to refer
refresh
back
it?
to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and she was wondering why she gave them out, told them how to blow up the city. So,
Oh, yeah.
so
That, when you were saying that, we mentioned earlier before we started this conversation that Elaine had someone who was saying she didn't feel comfortable writing a character. She wanted to write about herself.
right,
And we realize that when you write about yourself, you're limited, usually. Very rarely can someone write about themselves beyond themselves. We're in the box that we put ourselves in.
right,
Whereas if you write about someone else, you can essentially write, in this day and age, everything's the same, but you're writing about that character
right.
as you. If you just do a memoir,
Mhm.
you really limit yourself. I mean, a memoir can be useful,
Right.
but if you're trying to expand yourself, if you're trying to really discover yourself, put it out a little bit farther and make that a character. And you can give that character powers that, guess what, you already have.
Right, because the thing is, with your imagination, is like you're tapping, and I notice this especially when I'm writing, is I'm tapping into what I already know, and that's what's being conveyed to the paper, to the story. And so whatever you imagine for this character and the characters that she interacts with, you already have it. So if she can do magic, or if she's a healer, or she's gifted with being able to lead people, I mean, you already can do it. You may not think you can,
And you may not choose to.
and you may not choose to, but that gift is there. And if nothing else, at least you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And then there will become a point in your life where suddenly you will be put into a leadership position, or you will be put into a position where you have to speak up and say what is the truth, even though it terrifies you to do that. But, you've written it all about it already, and you know that it can be done because your character did it.
And what I see with the parallels between you and your character in terms of leadership is your character is very good at helping other people, like delegating the leadership.
Right.
She doesn't have to be there like Joan of Arc with the standard bearer and guiding everybody and giving everybody orders. She observes things, presents it to certain people, and sometimes it works out well and the people take it and do it well, and sometimes people plan to blow up the city, which isn't what you intended.
Nope.
But again, you can switch that around. You can go and save it and be the hero. You can be the heroine in more ways than the traditional ways we think of the heroine.
Right.
And it's great to be challenged and to recognize that's you. That's me doing that.
Right.
And it's not me here.
I can do
but
that.
But it is me
Yeah.
here. And I think that's, and I haven't started writing my heroine's novel yet, though part of it has been through my whole life. I have had a very active fantasy life of who I am and what I'm capable of and how I'm going to do this and that. But it would be interesting to see which of those characters would be the one I'd choose. Because as I've grown older, it's like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Right.
I wanted to be Tarzan, because I didn't like people a whole lot. I wanted to be me and the animals, and maybe let God into that triumvirate or whatever. But it was like, so that was that. And then, I would have loved to have been, the saint, the secret agent that changes all.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes.
And I wanted to be an actress, and some of that I found in my youth was because I didn't feel that I could actually do what I wanted to do. So I had to pretend I was going to be an actress, so I could pretend. And then as I started living out those things, some of them weren't as great as I thought they were going to be.
Yes.
Which is fine. You're not obligated just because you wanted to be something all your life, and then all of a sudden you get it, you go,
Been there, done that.
yeah, or it doesn't do it for me in reality, and fantasy is much better than reality.
Yes. Yeah.
It's totally valid. And so I found that, as I become an adult and can choose what I want to do, it comes with more obligations to choose not to do as well. Things that you thought you wanted to do, you should do, and say, just not doing it for me. Giving up a career after 20, 30 years because I thought I'd do it. I thought I'd be a massage therapist till I died because it was so wonderful. And 24 years later, it's like,
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, really? But you're so talented. Just, good.
Yeah.
But there are other people that can fill that. And
Well-
that's what, you give it to another character, and you say, okay, they can choose, and what do they have on the back burner? It's like,
Right.
what, just resting, just backing off, just, whoa, so, okay, that kind of feels good, because it's not like you're in suspended animation when you stop doing something. There's a lot more to us individually,
Mhm.
and if we don't stop and take that time, sometimes we never know what else there is to us. And if we're writing a character, sometimes it gives us permission
Mhm.
to say, oh, all this other stuff is going on over here,
Mhm.
which is the same as in here, and choices.
Mhm.
And that's liberating. It's got a huge responsibility in a way, but it's also liberating because we don't have to do it all at once.
Mhm.
It's that
Well,
surrender.
that's the thing about life is, I think one of the things that I know, I've talked to a lot of younger people, and they don't quite grasp it. And I
Mhm.
didn't when I was young. It's like, you think when you're young, you think you know it all. But the thing is, you don't. So as you get older, that's one of the blessings of getting older, is that you begin to realize that you don't know it all. And you also begin to realize that you become more discerning. It's like, I really like doing this, but doing that, like Jackie said about cooking,
Lower on the level of
yeah,
priorities.
but having conversations like this, it's like way up here.
It's true. And how valuable is this for us?
Well, it brings life into. See, that is the thing I'm beginning to realize, that probably one of the most important reasons for embracing and living your destiny is that it brings life into you. And especially as we get older, that becomes more important. When our bodies kind of say, I think I'm tired, I don't feel like moving.
Need to slow down.
So doing things that enliven us, that make us excited about life, that make us feel alive.
Mhm.
Those are like what's really important. And things like, it's like when I write, I'm in warp time. I joke about it. I'm in warp time because time doesn't exist, and then all of a sudden I'll look and it's dark outside, and I haven't eaten all day, and it's like, where have I been? Where have I been? And so when you're doing things like that fills us with life force, then that is living your destiny.
Yeah. And it can be, it can be writing, it can be, a lot of the arts do that, music and arts, when people are working on their projects. Sewing, I know quilters who, the same thing,
They
morning
go
till
all day.
night, and oh my gosh, I was supposed to be doing this or that.
Right,
Something as simple as coloring books.
right.
You're just working, and all of a sudden you haven't been hungry. So a lot of the things, the reasons we do eat or overeat, anxiety, boredom, frustration, doing things we don't want to do and trying to put them off.
We're trying to get our reward out of life, get something sweet out of life.
But if we're doing what we want to do,
We're getting that nourishment. We're nourishing our
Yeah.
soul, is what it
yeah,
amounts to.
absolutely. So we're nourishing our souls. We're also nourishing our bodies,
Right.
because it's all tied
It's
in.
all together.
And we don't have those external things that we're expecting to fix
Right.
what's not
We forget
jiving
about
with us.
judgments. We forget about what other people
Mhm.
think. I mean, we're just in this
Mhm.
world,
Mhm.
whatever it is. It could
Whichever
be,
world it is. Yeah.
whatever world, whether it's, art, or if it's, writing, or if it's, gardening, or
Mhm.
some people, they like to
Mhm.
run marathons. I mean, working with animals, horseback riding. I mean, whatever it is that brings that spark of life into you.
Mhm.
And or it could be working with people. I mean, you gotta watch that though. You can get sucked a little too far in, but
But you can get so
still.
too far sucked into writing or coloring
Yes,
books too.
I know.
So
No.
but it's being able to come to life before you pass out from hunger.
There we go.
From real hunger,
Or fatigue.
Yeah, or fatigue. And again, the whole thing is, if we do start, like, I'll spend a day coloring, and then 3 weeks I got other things to do, and it's like,
Right.
okay, step back. Sewing, you'd be crazy with sewing.
But you
or whatever.
bring that, whatever that essence was that nurtured you, that
Mhm.
you bring that into your daily life.
Mhm.
And I know for myself that after I've been able to engage in something that really is fulfilling, you know, it's like in my relationship, I'm a lot more cheerful. I'm a lot more tolerant. You know, I'm happy. You know, and the way I approach things, you know, challenges come up. It's like, oh, I can handle that. You know, and you just kind of go right through life so that you can go back and have your fun
Well,
again.
that's, you know, that's that filling up your glass.
Yeah.
Refilling your vessel so that you can do what you want to do.
Right.
You know, you agree to babysit a friend's child, or you know, take kids on an outing, and you know, children can be exhausting, but can be so life affirming, and it's just so exciting, and it's almost like being a child again. Sometimes being with the kids. By the end of the day, you might be dragging, but your glass is overflowing.
Right.
With the energy, the psychic input,
Well, they've imprinted you with their young energy, you know, and their, I mean, more than that is their enthusiasm and their life is a wonder. That's the thing. The biggest thing about a child is that life is awesome. Everything's magical. It's a wonder. It's like, wow.
And challenging. They're really challenging. So you find out sometimes that you really have a lot more capability of handling challenges than you thought when you're dealing with kids.
Yeah.
But again, it does. Any of those things that we do because they give us joy, and they don't have to be something we do every day. You don't have to be a teacher in order to have that twice yearly influx
High.
of child energy, that high of child energy. Or just, you know, whenever you spend time with your girlfriend who's got a 4-year-old or 5-year-old now, but, you know, you don't have to do, it doesn't have to be your job. But,
It's better if it's not.
But again, I mean,
but for some
bless those
people-
people who have
but-
found the
yeah.
job that is also their love.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I think they must have
They-
lived
yeah.
past lives where they did all they had to do, and now they're,
Yeah, but
they're in their
I
best
just,
place.
you know, I admire those people that can work for, I don't know, 40 years at the same job, and I love to watch them because you know, there's 2 people I know that have run equipment for 40 plus years, 50 years or something, and you watch them and it's like an artwork. I mean, it's like they are masters. I mean, it's like they can move dirt and operate, you know, the crane and the barge and the boats, and it's like it's so instinctively natural to them, and it's like I get jealous because I'm a jack of all trades and I know a little bit about a lot, but I've never mastered anything. You know, and then the other thing is I've got the way my chart's laid out is I'm like all or nothing, and so and fire never stays in one place; it blows around, and I have a lot of Uranus energy, which is like freedom, no attachments, freedom, and so it's hard for me to. These obligations are hard.
Oh yeah,
These
yeah.
you know, it's like for me. So for me to. You know, for me, so this is where everyone is different, and everyone's story is different, because for me to live my destiny and to be really happy and feel full of life is I have to have a lot of variety in my life. But for someone else, they can go to the same job and they can absolutely teetotally love it day and day and day, and I marvel at them.
Yes, and you know, even though I am water primarily, I'm very much the same. Jack of all trades, and I kind of wish that my life could, all the things I did, volunteer, whatever, sort of utilize the same tools. No chance. I see people who, you know, serve on volunteer communities that are committees that work in with what they do for their work and what their schooling taught them.
Right.
And I said, oh man, it would be so much easier to have it all merge, but
Right.
it's just not the way I'm cut out. I like to do
No.
too many things,
I know.
and that's why I don't feel that it's such a bad thing to flip-flop or to change back and forth. It's the way I go, and I like going the way I go. It
But
served me well.
Earth people have a hard time with that, though,
Mm.
because Earth people are the ones that can go and work and work and work, and their identity is wrapped up in what they've accomplished. Where someone who's a water or a fire person, their identity is not wrapped up in what they've
You just
accomplished.
go with the flow,
You
or
know,
go
it-
with the go where the
Yeah.
wind blows, or
Yeah, where the wind blows.
for you, for me, it's the flow. You know.
Well, I just go off to other worlds, so that, you know.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and so, you know, so that's why, so we're sort of cycling back around again to destiny. The destiny for everyone is different because for me, it's one thing. For Jackie, it's another thing. For, the different people, our partners, is different. For you, it's different. I mean, it depends on how you're designed, how the tools and the personality characteristics and patterns that you have are born with.
How you've been formed by the universe.
How you've been formed. That's a good way of saying it. How you've been formed to, basically.
To be a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I do every morning, I have this little meditation thing I do, and I thank the spirits of the four directions, and I thank the earth for giving me a form so I could serve. And so, so we all have a form that we, from which we're given to serve. And so, yeah, so there's no cookie cutter. One stop fits all. Everyone's different, and that's why I love working with different people and their charts, because so often what I've found is in all the readings I've done is that people, they sort of know this in the background, but it's really nice to hear it validated from somebody else that's not connected, and it's very, and gives them a different way of looking at themselves, instead of judging themselves for being a jack of all trades and never being a master of another, because that's something an earth person will tell you over and over again. Why can't you keep that job? What's wrong with that job? It's serving you just fine. You're making money. Isn't that what's important?
Why can't you settle down?
Yeah, why can't you settle down? And why are you always doing this and
Flitting
doing
around.
that? Some of you have probably heard that.
Yeah.
And so so just knowing that is the way you are designed to be is so relieving, and it's just like sheds a bunch of weight off of your shoulders. It's like, I am okay just the way I am. I am enough just the way I am,
And it's not a static thing.
Yeah.
We can choose how we want to play with that.
right.
And that's liberating too. I mean, it's liberating
Right.
to know who we are and what our path tends to look like, especially if after having a reading or different readings, we recognize ourselves in it. But there are a lot of places we haven't gone
Right.
that we can go. And speaking of going, my butt's getting a little bit
I
stiff
know.
on this stool.
Mine is
So I
too.
think we're going to say goodbye.
Adios,
I'm Jackie,
Elaine.
and we'll talk
We'll
to you another
entertain
time.
you another day.